Ever get that feeling you're seeing the same story over and over again? Well, guess what? You are. Today, we're going to uncover the ancient DNA that's hidden in like every book you read and every movie you watch. Let's dive into the world of myth criticism. You know that feeling, right? That little sense of déjà vu when you're watching a brand new blockbuster. You've got the hero's journey, the wise old mentor, the tragic fall from grace, and you're thinking, wait, I've seen this before. Well, it's not a glitch in the matrix, I promise. It's actually something much, much deeper. So, to really get this, we've got to rethink one little word, myth. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Myth means a lie, right? A tall tale. But for what we're talking about, a myth isn't about what's factually true. It's about what's universally true. True to the human experience itself. All right, so let's lock this in. What is a myth, really? What are these foundational stories that literally shape entire cultures? Okay, so think of it like this. A myth is a culture's blueprint and its collective soul, all rolled into one. It's a story that basically encodes everything: a people's values, their deepest fears, their biggest dreams. And no, these are not just kids' bedtime stories. These are the powerful narratives that hold a whole society together. And that right there, that brings us to the incredible power these stories have. See, they're not just for fun, not just entertainment. They actually serve this really deep, fundamental human need. The need to find meaning in a world that, let's be honest, can feel pretty chaotic and mysterious sometimes. I mean, think about the biggest questions we have, right? How did the universe even start? Why does the sun come up every morning? What are the rules we're all supposed to live by? And the big one, what happens when we die? Myths, well, they're like the original operating system for humanity. They gave us the first answers, the ones that created a shared reality for everyone. Okay, so we've got these powerful ancient stories. That's cool. But what in the world do they have to do with, say, a galaxy far, far away? Or a certain boy wizard? Or that mysterious millionaire throwing parties in West Egg? Well, to see that connection, you need a special kind of lens. And that lens, that special tool, is called myth criticism. It's basically a way of reading that lets you look underneath the surface of a story. You're looking for the ancient bones, right? The patterns and symbols that have been handed down for thousands and thousands of years. It helps you see that our modern storytellers, whether they know it or not, are dipping into the very same ancient well of human experience. So, when you put on these myth critic glasses, what exactly are you looking for? What's in the toolkit? Okay, let's break it down. It really boils down to three main things. First, you've got your recurring characters. We call them archetypes. These are the characters that feel like you've known them your whole life. Then you have recurring events, the big plot points that pop up again and again. And finally, you have symbolic motifs. These are the powerful places and ideas, like a lost garden or a massive flood, that just resonate with us super deeply. Let's take the hero, for example. I mean, think about it. Hercules, Luke Skywalker, Katniss Everdeen. They all look totally different, but they share this core DNA. They leave their normal, everyday world, they face these unbelievable challenges, and they come back changed, transformed. And then there's the trickster. Oh yeah, this is your Loki, your Bugs Bunny, even Captain Jack Sparrow. This is that chaotic agent of change who just loves to break the rules, challenge authority, and somehow, through all their mischief, they end up teaching us something important. And you can't forget the femme fatale. You know her, that alluring, mysterious, and, let's be real, dangerous figure who almost always leads our hero into a world of trouble. She's a classic in old-school film noir, sure, but her roots? They go all the way back to ancient figures like Circe in the Odyssey. So how do you actually do this? The process is surprisingly simple, really. First, you spot a pattern. Let's say a hero sacrificing themselves for everyone else. Step 2, you connect that pattern to a mythic archetype, like the idea of a dying and rising god. And finally, step 3, you uncover the universal, timeless truth that it's all pointing to, something about sacrifice, community, or rebirth. Okay, so let's bring this all home. Why does any of this matter? I mean, who cares? Why should we be looking for these ancient patterns when we're just trying to, enjoy a good story? Well, this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of it. The idea is that literature, it's not some isolated thing. It's a continuation of this myth-making impulse we've always had. Every story we tell is just one part of a single, massive, continuous conversation humanity's been having with itself, basically since the dawn of time. We're all just adding our own verse to one giant epic poem. So here's the most important takeaway. Our stories are never really new. They're all just echoes of the very first stories we ever told. And searching for these mythic patterns, it doesn't spoil the magic of a story. No way. It actually amplifies it. It connects you not just to the person who wrote the book, but to every storyteller who has ever lived. It shows you that our modern struggles, our hopes, our dreams, they're all just echoes of what our ancestors felt thousands of years ago. So the next time you press play on a movie or crack open a new book, try to keep this lens with you. Be a myth critic for a moment. Ask yourself, what echo am I hearing right now? What timeless pattern is unfolding in front of me? What ancient story will you see next? All right, welcome. Today we're going on this, well, it's a huge intellectual quest. It's like we're trying to unlock a secret code, one that's hidden deep inside all of our greatest stories. So let's just dive right in. Have you ever felt that? You know, that kind of strange sense of déjà vu when you're watching a new blockbuster or reading a new book? It's this feeling that somehow you've heard this story before, right? Even though the characters and the setting are totally different. So what's going on? How can all these stories from totally different times and places feel like they're just echoing each other? Well, the key to unlocking this whole mystery, it's this really powerful idea called myth criticism. The best way to think about it is like a special pair of glasses. You put them on and suddenly you can see these invisible blueprints, these universal patterns that connect pretty much all of human storytelling into one single epic conversation. Okay, but here's the thing. This whole search for a deeper pattern, it's not some new modern idea. Not at all. The very questions we're asking today, people have been whispering about them for thousands of years, all the way back to the dawn of philosophy. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about guys like Plato and Aristotle. Even way back then, they were grappling with the power of myths. They knew these weren't just simple fairy tales you tell your kids. No way. They were absolutely fundamental to how a society understood itself and its place in the world. So you can see how this idea kind of journeyed through time. For centuries, it was just this philosophical debate, right? But then, bam, the late 19th century hits and everything changes. A new, more scientific way of looking at it comes along, and the pace just explodes. Seriously, in less than 100 years, we went from just asking these ancient questions to building a whole, complete framework to answer them. It's wild. And the first major explorer on this journey for us is an anthropologist named Sir James George Frazer. You could think of him as the guy who set out to create the very first world map of mythology. So back in 1890, Frazer drops this absolutely massive work called The Golden Bough, and his method was just revolutionary for the time. See, he didn't just look at one culture's myths. He collected and compared stories, rituals, and beliefs from all over the globe, from everywhere, basically. He was hunting for the connections. And what he found was, honestly, it was mind-blowing. The same core ideas just kept popping up everywhere. We're talking cultures that had zero contact with each other, but they all had stories about a dying and reviving god, the sacred king, the fertility cycle, the scapegoat. It was the first real, hard evidence that maybe, just maybe, all of humanity shares a kind of symbolic language. So Frazer's work was incredible. It showed us what the patterns were, but it left a huge question hanging in the air. Why? Why do these patterns exist in the first place? To get that answer, the journey had to shift from the outside world of culture to the inside world of the human mind. And that's where the psychologist Carl Jung comes in. Jung had this profound, really deep idea. He called it the collective unconscious. The theory is that deep down, there's a layer of our minds that we all share, like a psychic inheritance passed down from our most ancient ancestors. And according to Jung, this shared mind is filled with what he called archetypes, these ancient, universal images like the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, the great mother. These, he said, are the universal building blocks for all our myths and even our dreams. Then, building on Jung's work, the mythologist Joseph Campbell took this whole thing a step further. Campbell also studied myths from all over the world, and he noticed something incredible. He found a single, universal story pattern that's at the heart of almost all of them. He called it the monomyth, but you probably know it as the hero's journey.
Okay, so let's put these two side by side because it's a great way to understand it. Young basically gave us the cast of characters, those archetypes. And Campbell, he gave us the plot they all follow, the monomyth, the hero's journey. It's like Young found the ingredients and Campbell wrote down the recipe. Two different approaches, but they both point to the same amazing truth. All right, so now we've got these cultural patterns from anthropology, thanks to Fraser, and we have the mental blueprints from psychology, thanks to Young and Campbell, but how do you put it all together to actually analyze literature? For that, we needed a master architect, and his name was Northrop Frye, a literary theorist. In 1957, Frye published his book, Anatomy of Criticism, and in it, he makes this incredibly bold claim. He argues that myth isn't just something that influences literature. It's not just something stories borrow from. No, he said myth is the actual skeleton, the deep, fundamental structure that all literature is built on. And this really captures his whole vision. See, for Frye, all the books in the world aren't just a random pile. It's all one single connected system, an order of words. And what's the organizing principle? What's the hidden force that gives it all shape and meaning? It's myth. So when you step back, it's like this incredible intellectual relay race. First, you have anthropology with Fraser mapping all the patterns he saw across the globe. He passes the baton to psychology, where Young and Campbell dive deep into the mind to figure out where those patterns come from. And then, for the final leg, literary theory with Frye takes all those amazing insights and forges them into a real, practical tool we can use. So what's the big takeaway here? The really crucial point is this. Myth criticism isn't just about giving us a new way to analyze books. It's so much bigger than that. It gives us a new way to see ourselves, to see all of humanity. It shows us that every single story, from the oldest legend we have to the latest movie script, is just another voice in one gigantic, continuous story that we've all been telling ourselves for thousands and thousands of years. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If this great human story is still being written right here, right now, then what are the myths we're living by today? What are the new stories we're writing? And what chapters are we adding to this incredible ongoing saga?